Hello, this is Olivia, and welcome to my channel, Justice in Her Hands, with a new original story. Let's begin. The key stopped the way a heart does between beats, metal catching on a lock that did not belong to me. Paper bags cut into my fingers, the smell of oranges and laundry powder mixing with the damp chill rolling off the porch. The porch light snapped on, bright as judgment, and there he was, my boy, my Grady, framed in the doorway I had painted with him one spring when he was still small enough to fall asleep on the drop cloth. He looked past me the way people look past roadkill. "Not your home anymore," he said, voice low, like he was protecting me by speaking softly. "Check the deed." He did not lift a hand to take a single bag. I said his name once, the way I said it when he was little, and woke from a nightmare. It did not open anything. The new deadbolt gleamed. Sienna's silhouette moved behind him, smooth and busy, like she had somewhere important to be that was not here. A curtain stirred. Across the street, Mrs. Dalrymple's porch light blinked on. June Calloway, my next-door nurse, and the kind of woman who keeps casseroles in her freezer for bad days, texted me, "Are you okay?" I saw the light flash on my screen and could not make my thumb move. I remembered the day at the bank, signing pages that sounded like safety. A quitclaim, the loan officer had said. Simple, just a paper that would put the roof in Grady's name so that the bridal registry felt less like wishful thinking. I wanted him to feel anchored. He had cried when his father died. He had not cried since. I signed like a mother does, trusting the future to behave. Tonight, the future behaved like a stranger. "Grady," I tried again. My breath fogged white. The bags grew slick. Inside, the old clock chimed. He said, "Mom, please don't make this harder." He said, "We talked about this." Maybe we did. Maybe I heard what I wanted, and the rest slid past like rain on glass. He stepped back and the door closed with that new lock finality, a sound you feel in your teeth. A porch moth battered itself against the bulb until it fell. I did not pound. I did not throw oranges at the door, the way the wild part of me wanted. I turned, because dignity is sometimes the only thing you can keep. My sedan smelled like coffee and mouse warmth. I set the bags on the passenger seat. Bread steamed the windows. Somewhere a dog barked, then another, and then the street went still. I curled my palm around the torn cut from the bag handle and told myself it would stop bleeding if I did not look. The seatbelt buckle pressed a cold bruise into my hip. I scrolled motel prices I could not afford, closed the screen, and watched my own house as if it were a movie set where I was not needed. Before sunrise, a call buzzed my phone from a number with the bank's name. I stared until it stopped, the quiet, thick as wool, and for the first time since my husband died, I felt something like anger find its feet inside me. It stood. It did not apologize. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. Cold creeps in strange ways when you sleep sitting up. It gets behind your knees and rests there like a stone. By the time the horizon lightened, my lower back ached, and my fingers had stiffened into little hooks around my phone. I called June first. She answered on the first ring like she had been awake, waiting for the world to be better than it was. "Front door," she said, and hung up. When I stepped onto her porch, coffee reached me before she did, the kind that smells dark and steady. June is not a woman who fusses, but she took one look at my face and put a hand between my shoulder blades in a way that told my spine to remember itself. I returned the bank's call from her kitchen while she buttered toast with neat little strokes. A man introduced himself as Marcus Hale from Flagstone Community Bank and asked if I was in a safe place to talk. I told him yes, though the word felt borrowed. He said there had been an application overnight for a home equity line using my bungalow as collateral. A rush, he called it, flagged because the quitclaim deed had been recorded so recently. He read a line, owner-occupied certification. My name sat there in his mouth. I had not signed anything, not for credit, not for cash, not for new furniture like that catalog Sienna left open on my table. Marcus said they needed me at the branch to verify in person with identification. I stared at June. My driver's license sat in a little dish by my kitchen sink, under a rubber band with stray keys and a grocery list. Lemons, soap, dill. I don't have my ID, I said. My voice broke on the last letter like a thin twig. June's eyes squared up. We'll get it. She said it like a nurse charting vitals. We drove the 2 blocks in her Subaru, heater blasting, and I practiced the sentence I hated. I need to come inside my house. The street already had its watchers. Mr. Ellis slowed his dog to a near stop. June walked with me, not behind me. At the door, Sienna opened just far enough for her perfume to push out, sweet and manufactured. The chain stayed on. We're busy, she said, smooth as a showroom. I explained about the medicine and my wallet and my identification. I kept my voice low because shame grows louder when you feed it. She said Grady was sleeping, and the baby, there was no baby yet. There was only the idea of one, needed quiet. The door moved to close. June slid her foot, quick and gentle, into the space. This is a courtesy, she said, not raising her voice. 5 minutes. ID, medications, and we leave. She looked like every competent nurse I have ever seen. Calm, immovable. Sienna blinked, weighed her options, and said she would call the police. Please do, June answered, and the way she said it turned the air colder. 2 officers arrived, lights off. But the car itself is a light in a neighborhood like ours. People came to their windows the way plants turn to sun. The younger officer listened while the older one stared at the azaleas like they might offer a solution. Ma'am, he said to me, this looks like a civil matter. We can't force entry. June spoke up. No one is asking you to. We're asking for a simple courtesy escort so she can retrieve identification and medication. Sienna must have heard the word medication and calculated the optics because she unhooked the chain and allowed the officers to stand in the foyer as I went in, supervised. The house smelled like lemon oil and someone else's body spray. My mug sat by the sink with a ring of yesterday's coffee at the bottom, and beside it, the little dish with my license and insurance card and that rubber band. I slid them into my pocket, breathing shallow because the air hurt. On the dining table lay a manila folder with a bank logo and a tab that said HELOC in bold marker. I did not touch it. I only saw the corner of a printout with my name spelled exactly right, and a neat signature that looked like mine had been practicing to be prettier. I felt a heat that did not ask permission rise under my skin. I took my blood pressure pills from the cabinet, my marriage certificate from the blue file in the hall, and my grandmother's locket from the hook on the mirror. I left everything else. When I stepped back onto the porch, conversations snapped shut all up and down the street. June drove us to the branch. Fluorescence hummed like something that knows all your business. In a small office with a glass wall and a dying fern, Marcus slid copies across to me, lines highlighted. If this is not your signature, Ms. Pierce, we can freeze the application and notify our fraud team. The pen on the page had my tempo, but not my mistakes. It was like hearing your voice in a recording and knowing it had been tuned. Freeze it, I said. The muscles in my jaw unclenched for the first time since the porch light came on. I was still a mother. I was also a person. Those 2 truths pressed hard against each other. They can both be true, and still. County buildings always smell like dry paper and copier heat, like promises cooked under fluorescent lights. June parallel parked with her usual neatness and gave my hand a single squeeze before we walked into the recorder's office. Morning traffic hummed outside, a steady thrum that made the glass door tremble. Inside, a wall clock ticked like a scolding tongue. I asked for certified copies of everything recorded on my parcel in the past 6 months. My voice sounded overly polite, the way you speak when you're not sure you deserve service. The clerk, a woman with red frames and a name badge that said Delia Knox, typed with measured patience. She did not look at me like a failure. She looked at screens the way nurses look at charts. Fact by fact, not story. She slid papers through the slot. My quitclaim deed, stamped and time-barred, with my name as grantor and Grady Pierce as grantee. Consideration. $1 and love and affection. My signature lived there, like a bruise you tell yourself is nothing until you press it. The notary block carried a name I did not recognize, Alyssa Mott, and a date exactly 2 days after I remembered signing at the bank. I remembered Marcus's stapler. I remembered a blue pen with a chewed cap. I did not remember Alyssa Mott. Delia printed an affidavit of property value and a change of address notice that shifted tax mail to my bungalow. Attention, Grady. My stomach tightened into a fist. June leaned in, eyes scanning with a nurse's habit, then quietly asked for a copy of the notary's commission number. Delia circled it in pink highlighter. Practical compassion feels like that highlighter line. Bright. Undeniable. We stepped into the hallway, sun-catching dust like snow held in suspension. I need a lawyer who does housing and elder issues, I said. The word elder tasted like I had borrowed my mother's shoes. June already had a number. Of course she did. She called the Maple County Senior Legal Clinic and somehow got me squeezed into a same-day consult. On the ride over, Grady's name lit my phone. I watched it ring out. The second call came from Sienna. I let it die, too. Love can wait. A freeze cannot. The clinic's lobby had a crook-necked rubber plant and a stack of pamphlets about scams that happen in parking lots. A woman in a navy dress introduced herself as Dana Whitlow, staff attorney, voice firm with the edges sanded down. She read fast, lips moving slightly, the way my husband used to when mortgage language gave him a headache. A quitclaim gives up whatever you had, Dana said, and here it looks like you had full title, no life estate reserved. The room clicked slightly, like a cooling engine. But, she continued, tapping the forged owner-occupied page from Flagstone, that signature is not yours. That goes to intent. We can file for a temporary restraining order to prohibit further encumbrance, record a notice of pendency so title cannot move without tripping alarms, and lodge a formal complaint with the notary board, if that acknowledgement is defective. Also, Maple County does not permit self-help lockouts in residential settings. Even an owner cannot simply change locks on a person in actual possession without due process. You were in actual possession. She let that sit. A small island in a flood. I wanted to say, he is my boy. I wanted to say he will fix it when he wakes up fully and remembers who raised him. Instead, I heard my voice ask, what happens if I do nothing? Dinah's eyes softened in a way that still told the truth. Then they leverage your equity, and you'll chase a moving train. June nodded once, approving the medicine. My mouth went dry, like I had swallowed chalk. I signed an engagement letter, hand steady and disloyal and necessary. Choosing myself felt like taking off a sweater in public and discovering skin underneath. Warm, exposed, human. We left with a stamped checklist, emergency motion for a restraining order, Ellis pendants for the recorder. Demand letter to Flagstone's title partner. Request to the police for an incident number referencing a lockout on a date certain. Outside, traffic smelled faintly of hot breaks. The sky had that flat noon glare that makes every flaw in paint show. I thought of my porch, of moths, of Grady asleep while we built legal scaffolding around the house I had scrubbed before every holiday. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number with a photo of my living room. My quilts folded into a plastic tub. My framed wedding picture missing from the mantel. The message read, "We'll pack up your things for pickup Saturday." One sentence. No name. No please. My heart did a sharp, small thing in my chest. June took the phone and photographed the screen with hers. "Chain of evidence," she murmured. Then she looked at me, really looked. "You're doing the right thing." I believed her for exactly 3 seconds. Then I remembered Grady at 5, cheeks sticky with popsicle, running up our just-painted porch, my hand steadying his shoulder. Memory is a lovely liar. The law is not. Courthouse mornings taste like metal. The security arch beeped at my belt, and the deputy waved me through with the bored mercy of someone who has seen worse. Dana met us by the elevators, navy dress, hair pinned like a plan. She handed me a stack, verified complaint, affidavit, proposed temporary order. The paper felt dry and warm, as if it had a pulse from the copier. "You will say only what you know," she said. "Dates, times, facts. Let the adjectives sit quietly." I nodded, chewing a breath until it was small enough to swallow. We filed at the clerk's window. A rubber stamp thudded with each page, the sound of a door locking and unlocking in quick succession. June stood at my shoulder, quiet ballast. The clerk slid the bundle into a red file jacket and walked it back to chambers. We waited on molded chairs that squeaked every time I shifted. Outside the window, the flag cracked in a wind I could not hear. I stared at my hands. My cut from the grocery bag had scabbed into a dark comma. I wanted to rewrite its sentence. When the clerk returned, she spoke low, like we were in a chapel. "Ex parte granted pending hearing." The words were a bell. The order barred further encumbrances and any disposal of my property, set a hearing in 7 days, and directed status quo until then. Status quo, I thought, tasting the Latin. Nothing about this is that. Still, it was something. Service would be required. Grady and Sienna had to be handed the papers. Dana had already arranged a process server. "You will not deliver this yourself," she said, catching the thought before I could deny it. My heart kicked. Once and hard. Good. Let paper carry what my voice cannot. We walked 2 blocks to the recorder. Delia, the red frames from yesterday, watched the lace pendants slide under the glass and stamped it with a heavy ceremonial thunk. "Now, anyone searching title sees there's a dispute," she said. I pictured the word dispute floating over my roof like a weather alert. June asked for a copy for the bank. Delia made one without asking for a fee. It felt like the world pushing very slightly in my direction. We ducked into June's Subaru, and I pulled up the state notary lookup on my phone, the commission number circled in pink highlighter in my lap. The database loaded slow, as if it, too, had doubts. Commission. Expired last month. I felt the air cool against my cheeks. So the acknowledgement was taken by someone with no active authority, Dana said, when I showed her the screen. "That's helpful." She did not smile. Lawyers save smiles for later. At Flagstone, Marcus ushered us into the little glass office with the dying fern. He already had the list pendant scan in his inbox, and a folder labeled Hold. "Our title partner has placed a freeze," he said. "If anyone tries a cash out, it will throw alarms." He slid a form to me, an affidavit of identity, and I signed slowly, each letter a small anchor. He noticed my hands and pushed a cold bottle of water across the desk. The plastic creaked. Tiny things break before big things do. On the way out, my phone buzzed again, a tag on the neighborhood Facebook page. Sienna had posted a photo of the police car from yesterday with a caption about safety during a private family transition. Comments bloomed fast, some clucking sympathy, some sharp as porcupine quills. My name was not there, but everyone knew. The public part of it landed on my sternum like a fist. June reached over and muted the app. "We don't feed fires," she said. I watched the screen go still and told myself I could breathe around the part that hurt. We stopped by my cafeteria so I could speak to my manager, Mr. Tanner, who wears bow ties like armor. The steam tables hissed, and the smell of yeast rolls nearly undid me. I told him, in a flat voice, that I needed a short leave. He looked at my face for a long second and said, "Family storms pass slower than forecasts say. Take the days." The kindness hit behind my eyes like bright water. I signed a leave slip with the same tired pen hand I had used on the restraint papers. Before we left, one of the seniors I always sneak extra peaches to touched my elbow and said, "Sometimes you have to walk your own boy to the truth." I nodded because speech would have cracked. By afternoon, Dana texted that service had been attempted. No answer. Papers posted and mailed. I pictured the packet, my name, their names, taped to my own door, flapping in the porch wind. The sun slid lower, turning the street gold, and then bruised. "You can stay with me as long as you need," June said, matter of fact as a grocery list. I lay on her guest bed that night listening to the heater click on and off, my fingers on my grandmother's locket, a little warm moon. Somewhere, a process server's tape held. Somewhere, a clock measured out 7 days like grains of salt. I told myself I was not abandoning my son. I was building a fence around the part of me he could not spend. The dispatcher called the civil standby a courtesy, which is a polite way to say the law can stand in your doorway, but it will not carry your boxes. Officer Ramirez met us at the curb, jacket zipped to his chin, radio muttering like a small, irritated bird. I handed him a copy of the temporary order, my name steady at the top, and for a moment the paper felt heavier than it looked. We walked up the path I once edged with marigolds, and every footfall sounded too loud on my own concrete. Sienna opened the door with her smile turned to the lowest setting. Behind her, the house smelled like lemon cleaner and cardboard tape. "I'm here to retrieve clothing and keepsakes," I said, and heard my voice do that careful Sunday school thing. Ramirez nodded, one palm up, peaceable. Sienna glanced toward the hallway, and then let us in like a hostess who had miscounted chairs. On the living room rug sat 3 plastic tubs with blue lids. A strip of masking tape read, "Mom," in neat block letters, as if I were a project. My throat went dry. I lifted the lid and saw my quilts folded wrong, tight as rolls from the cafeteria. The wedding photo was gone from the mantel. The white square of sun where it had been looked like a missing tooth. 5 minutes, Sienna said, and set a timer on her phone. June's eyebrows flicked up, but she said nothing, just opened my old cedar chest and started laying out sweater, blouse, like triage. I went to the bedroom and slid open drawers that smelled of lavender and years. Under my socks, the locket's chain had knotted itself into a tiny metal snarl. I worked it loose, fingers prickling. The bedspread had been turned down like a hotel. My nightstand was bare except for a coaster and dust in a ring. I felt an absurd urge to make the bed, to leave something orderly, to prove I had been a tidy guest in my own life. A knock came from the front door, brisk. A man in a windbreaker stepped in with a clipboard and a bright smile that did not check the room first. "Ethan Rowe, Maple Appraisals," he announced, "here to take a few quick measurements." He had the air of someone who believes every house is a math problem. I saw the way Ramirez's posture changed, 1 degree tighter. June put the order into Ethan's hands before Sienna could speak. He read the heading, and his cheeks lost a shade. "I was scheduled," he said, softer now. "I'm sure you were," June replied, and the kindness in her tone was the kind that leaves no bruises, but leaves a mark. Ramirez shook his head once. Ethan backed out, mumbling that he would follow up with the bank. The tape on the tubs caught a shaft of sun and flashed. Grady came down the hall then, barefoot, hair sticking up in boyish peaks that punched a hole right through my resolve. He looked 12. My heart tripped and then hardened like cooling sugar. "Mom, you're making this messy," he said, as if the mess were my voice. I held the locket chain in my palm to keep my hands from reaching for his face. "We will talk through counsel," I said, each word a plank across water. Something flickered in his expression. Doubt or calculation, I could not tell, and then Sienna touched his arm and he exhaled like a stage cue had been delivered. "We're doing what's best for the baby," she said. There was no baby yet. Only the idea of one, but ideas can make people brave in the wrong direction. We carried the tubs to June's car, my breath turning thin in the cool. Across the street, Mrs. Dalrymple stood with her dog and a face like the front page of a small-town paper. Public. Everything about this was public now. On the passenger seat, my phone buzzed. Marcus from Flagstone. He had heard an appraiser had arrived, and he wanted copies of the order and the Ellis pendants for their internal lock file. "If a second lender tries to touch title, we'll see it," he said. His voice held something I needed more than comfort: procedure. He asked whether my signature on the notary page matched any work badge or prior file they had. "It doesn't," I said, tasting the literal truth. "Then we build from that," he said. "Build, not bleed." Back at June's, we stacked the tubs by the guest bed. A shirt still held my laundry soap smell. The quiet roared like a shell held to the ear. I wrote names and times in a spiral notebook until my hand cramped. Ramirez, Sienna Timer, Ethan Rowe. Appraiser turned away. Neighbor witness at curb. I tried not to write the sentence that wanted to crowd the margin. My son watched me carry my life out in plastic. June's kettle whistled like a small alarm, and then settled into a soft breath. We spread papers across her kitchen table, order, receipt stamps, the pink-circled commission number, while the sun made a bright rectangle on the wood. I scanned everything with my phone and sent it to Marcus for Flagstone's lock file. 5 minutes later, he called, voice careful and awake. "Ms. Pierce, 2 updates. 1. Our title partner traced the notary. The board confirms her seal was reported stolen the week before your deed was dated. There is no matching entry in her journal." I gripped the counter edge. The laminate felt cool and clean under my palm. 2. A second lender, Crescent Federal, tried to pull tri-merge credit around midnight using your parcel. We've circulated your order, and our fraud unit is filing a report that will reach the county attorney. The words rearranged the room. For days, my life had been about shrinking. Shrink your voice, shrink your presence, shrink your hope. Now something bigger than me had turned and faced the problem. I felt relief rise like heat. Right behind it came the ache of it being my son. Both truths had to live in the same body. I made space. Dana met us at Maple Police. The interview room smelled like old coffee and carpet glue. Detective Thomas Vega slid a legal pad toward me and let the silence make room for facts. I laid out dates, times, names, smells, the moth at the porch light, the taped tubs, the appraiser's clipboard, the Facebook caption that did not say my name but might as well have tattooed it. Vega's printing was neat and patient. "We'll open an investigation," he said, "starting with the notary and the banks. We'll request security footage from Flagstone on the day you remember signing and compare it to the recorded acknowledgement date." I kept my eyes on his pen so I wouldn't start apologizing for my son. When he handed me the incident number, the white paper felt heavier than it looked, the way important things do. Outside, the air tasted like rain without the kindness of actual drops. June's phone buzzed, her brows knit. "Marketplace listing," she said, turning the screen. "Farmhouse quilts, vintage, set of 3. Pick up this weekend. My patterns, my stitches." The photo's background showed my living room wall, the same pale paint I rolled one summer while a fan hummed on a chair. My chest went tight and bright, a hot ring. Dana snapped screenshots, copied the seller profile, and sent a short message to their counsel of record. "Cease and preserve." "The order covers disposal," she said. "We'll notify them and the platform." I felt something shift in me. Not anger alone, not grief alone. A decision, like a door swinging onto oiled hinges. "Dana," I said, "file whatever lets me back inside before the hearing. Keys, re-entry, supervised. I need to sleep in my own bed and gather my records." Saying it out loud tasted like metal and freedom. She nodded once. "Motion for interim possession," she said. "We'll ask for a civil standby and limited access to home office and bedroom. The court may grant it." On the drive back, June's wipers made soft arrows on the glass. My phone rang. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. A text arrived instead. "Mom, can we talk like grown-ups?" My hands trembled against the locket. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to sprint backwards into years where saying yes fixed everything. I put the phone face down and wrote it in my notebook instead. No direct contact. Protect the record. Protect the truth. That afternoon, Marcus emailed written confirmation that Maple appraisals had canceled and that Flagstone had issued an internal red alert on my parcel. In a separate note, the title partner flagged a clerical error in the recorded deed's legal description, 1 digit off on the lot number. "Cloud On title favors a freeze," Marcus wrote. I exhaled slowly, cheeks cold from holding air too long. The ground under this was still shaky, but it no longer felt like free fall. For the first time since the porch light, I pictured unlocking my own door without asking permission. The judge read our motion without looking away from me, which felt worse than when people look through you. "Limited re-entry granted," she said at last, tapping the order. "2 supervised hours, no confrontation, status quo otherwise." The words landed like a ladder pushed against a wall. Dana squeezed my elbow. June exhaled the way nurses do when a patient's numbers settle. Officer Ramirez met us at the curb again. The air smelled metallic, like rain that could not quite make up its mind. Sienna opened the door, already holding her phone up, red light winking. "Per the court," Ramirez said, calm as a metronome, and stepped inside. Grady stood in the hallway, arms folded across a t-shirt I had bought on a discount rack. The ache in my ribs was old and brand new at once. I went straight to the small desk in the back bedroom where the tax files lived. Dust drifted in the window beam like lazy snow. In the top drawer, under rubber bands and a dried-out pen, sat a Flagstone envelope addressed to me, slit open with a butter knife. "Owner occupancy verification, urgent," it said, date stamped the morning after I signed the quitclaim. My name, my address, my house. I photographed it, front and back, my hands unsteady but useful. Underneath, face down, a printout. Durable power of attorney. My name in the caption line, but not in my handwriting. I did not touch it. I only took the picture and felt my pulse move up into my throat. My phone rang. Marcus. "Two things," he said, voice tight and sure. One, our counsel will submit an affidavit that the acknowledgement on your deed is defective, stolen seal, expired commission, and no journal entry, so the transfer is voidable at minimum. Two, Crescent Federal withdrew and filed a suspicious activity report. The county attorney's office has asked for our package. We will appear at your hearing if needed. It was a bank call, but it felt like a tide turning. I braced a palm on the desk and breathed until the room stopped tilting. When we stepped back onto the porch, Sienna lifted her phone higher, performing a private tragedy for a public square. Ramirez read the interim order out loud, even tone, each clause a small fence. Mrs. Dalrymple's dog sneezed. Someone across the street said, "Huh." The way people do when they learn a story is not the one they were told. My cheeks burned and then, oddly, cooled. I slid the court-issued key into the new deadbolt. The turn was stiff, then smooth, a sound like a throat clearing. For the first time in weeks, a lock moved because I asked it to. June loaded my banker's box while I took one last photo of the living room wall where my wedding picture had been. A pale rectangle, a clean absence. Inside the car, I pressed my locket into my palm until the metal warmed. The order did not give me everything. It gave me enough. I let the engine idle and said to no one, to everyone, I am done apologizing for protecting what I built. The morning of the hearing tasted like a penny under my tongue. June parked in the public lot behind the courthouse, her hand steady on the shifter, while mine shook against my grandmother's locket. Dana met us at the steps with a banker's box, and that calm, even tone that keeps a person from breaking. Facts, not feelings, she reminded me, then softer. And if you need a moment, take one. The hallway outside Division C smelled like floor polish and old dust. Our names were printed on a docket taped to glass. Seeing Pierce v. Pierce in black letters felt like standing outside my own house again, key in a wrong lock. Marcus arrived in a gray suit that looked borrowed from a better day, carrying a thin folder and a flash drive. "Affidavit signed," he said. "Title partner on standby." Detective Vega followed, tie a little crooked, eyes clear. He set a disc on Dana's stack. "Security footage from Flagstone, the day after your quitclaim recorded," he said. Time stamped. The notary whose seal was reported stolen does not appear, but Sienna does, presenting an owner occupancy form with a signature that does not match Miss Pierce's prior file. Grady is with her. The words made a small, clean sound in my chest, like a latch lifting. Relief arrived with grief riding its shoulders. That, too, is a kind of truth. Down the hall, I caught a glimpse of Sienna's hair and Grady's familiar slope-shouldered walk. She stood slightly in front of him, bright as a storefront, whispering while he stared at the floor tiles like they might tell him where to step. A woman from our block, the one who once asked for my biscuit recipe, tilted her head when she saw me and then looked away too quickly. Public, again. My cheeks warmed, then cooled, like a wave had passed through. June angled herself between me and the hallway traffic, a small shield that did not need to be big to work. Dana opened the box and laid out our spine, certified copies, the notary board's stolen seal letter, the marketplace screenshots, the text about packing up, the interim order, the incident number, and Marcus's affidavit. She slid me a single page. "Your declaration," she said. "Read it once more out loud." I did. Voice thin but even. The words simple and terrible. The porch light. The changed lock. The moth. The tubs. The appraiser at the door. The opened mail. The paper with my name in someone else's hand. Every fact sat where it belonged. Feelings stood behind glass, visible and quiet. A clerk cracked the courtroom door and called our case. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to the wood grain under my palm and the dry, sweet smell of June's peppermint tea on her coat. I thought of Grady at 5, paint on his elbows, falling asleep against the door frame we had just brushed white. I thought of the key turning yesterday in the new deadbolt, because a judge said it could. Two truths, both sharp. I stood anyway. Inside Division C, the air felt starched. The judge had a measured way of blinking that made you want to use fewer adverbs. I was sworn in. Dana's questions were short enough to fit on stair steps. When did you arrive home? What did you see? What did you sign? What did you not sign? I told it like weather, porch light, new lock, moth, tubs, appraiser, opened envelope, my name in someone else's hand. Each answer left a small ring on the record like a coffee cup. Dana moved exhibits. The stolen seal confirmation, the list pendants, the interim order, screenshots of my quilts listed like yard sale items, the text promising to pack up my life, the affidavit from Marcus. The judge admitted them with a soft rap that sounded polite and final. Detective Vega described the security footage. Sienna at Flagstone the day after the recording date, presenting an owner occupancy form. No appearance by the notary whose seal had been reported stolen. Grady standing beside her. My stomach pulled tight, then loosed. Truth does not hug. It holds you still. Respondent's counsel, a man named Boyd with a voice like felt, called what happened a family consolidation. He said my quit claims showed generosity, not duress, and that any confusion came from grief and timing. When he asked if I hated Sienna, I said I did not, which was true in the way a clear sky is still cold. He suggested I was retaliating because a baby was coming. There is no baby, I said. There's only the idea of one. A murmur skittered along the benches. The judge lifted her hand and the room remembered itself. Marcus testified next. He explained owner-occupied certifications, title freezes, and red alerts in the calm, careful language bankers use right before a fuse burns down. He said Crescent Federal had withdrawn and filed a suspicious activity report. He spoke about the legal description error, one digit wrong on the lot, creating a cloud that made lenders step back. We are prepared to appear on any continued date, he finished, and our title partner is ready with a memorandum if permitted. I watched Sienna's jaw tense, and then smile like a shudder. Then Grady spoke. His voice was the one he used as a boy when he brought me dandelions and called them flowers. He said I had always wanted him to feel secure. He said he thought the paper meant the house was our family's now and that he was trying to be responsible. He did not say marketplace. He did not say the posted text. Sienna nodded at the floor as though she were listening to a hymn only she could hear. The ache in my chest rose, bright and hot, and then cooled into something that could stand up without apology. Dana asked for continuation of the restraining order, for temporary possession and keys, while the court considered the transfer's validity, and for an order against disposal or listing of any of my property. The judge leaned back, eyes moving over our stack like a tide over stones. She opened her mouth and the clerk stepped up with a note. At the same instant, Marcus's phone buzzed on the table, face down, harder than a normal vibration. He glanced, then looked at Dana with a question that felt like static. "Your Honor," Marcus said when permitted to speak. "Flagstone's title partner is on the line with an emergency memorandum that may bear directly on the deed's status." The judge's gaze settled on me, and then on Grady, as if measuring distance. She announced a brief recess to review any additional filings. The gavel's soft tap sounded like a lid set on a boiling pot. In the hallway, June pressed peppermint into my palm. Sienna whispered into Grady's ear. The buzzing returned, insistent. I lifted my eyes to the courtroom door, already knowing whatever waited on that call would tilt the floor beneath all of us. When the clerk called us back, the courtroom felt colder, as if the air had learned something hard while we were gone. The judge held a thin packet like it might hum. "Counsel," she said, "the court has reviewed the title partner's memorandum." Dana rose. Boyd rose. I did not. I pressed my locket to steady my hands. The legal description in the recorded quitclaim references a non-existent lot number. The judge read, voice even as a level. As a matter of record, the instrument does not convey the described parcel. Any corrective deed would require the grantor's signature. None appears. The notary acknowledgement is supported by a seal reported stolen and an expired commission. The court also notes bank footage showing respondents presenting a certification inconsistent with petitioner's known signature. She looked up. Not unkind, exactly, but unblinking. On this record, the deed is at minimum voidable, and quite possibly void. The words did not make a sound at first. Then everything inside me moved at once, like a school of fish changing direction. Donna asked for relief. Immediate possession, restoration of keys, an injunction against disposal, and referral of the notary issue to the county attorney. Boyd objected in a soft, practiced way that seemed intended to soothe the furniture. The judge overruled, piece by precise piece. "Temporary possession to petitioner," she said. "Respondents shall surrender keys today. No person shall dispose of or list any item from the residence. Sheriff is authorized to enforce. The matter is referred for criminal review. We will set a status conference to address corrective title instruments or, if necessary, quiet title." Grady made a sound, small and raw, and then swallowed it. Sienna stared at a scuff on the floor that was not there yesterday. June's hand found my elbow. I did not know I was shaking until I felt her steady. The gavel tapped once, polite as a teaspoon on porcelain, and it was done. On the courthouse steps, Detective Vega asked for copies of the memorandum and my declaration. His pen moved like he was writing a grocery list for a storm. Marcus shook my hand with both of his. "We'll unwind the cloud," he said. "We'll stand up in any room you need." Words like scaffolding, useful, not pretty. We drove to the house behind a sheriff's cruiser. The sky held that bleached afternoon glare that makes every flaw visible. Neighbors drifted onto porches as if summoned by weather. The locksmith's drill whined, a small animal in metal, and wood shavings fell like pale confetti onto the welcome mat Sienna had chosen without asking me. Grady stood at the curb, hands deep in his pockets, taller than his father had been, suddenly very young. "Mom," he said, voice frayed, "I can fix." I put up a hand, palm out. Not a stop, exactly. More a gentle fence. "You will tell the truth," I said. "I will do the same. I love you, and you may not live here." The words felt like lifting a heavy pan and setting it down on a safe burner. He nodded, then shook his head, then looked at his shoes. Sienna did not look at me at all. Inside, lemon cleaner still hung in the air, bright and false. The pale rectangle where my wedding photo had been glowed like a healed scar. June opened windows. Cool air shouldered in. I walked the rooms slow, fingertips grazing door frames, naming what stayed, what went, what could be forgiven, what must be documented. I folded my quilts back onto the cedar chest, loose and soft the way I stitched them, and set the court papers in the top drawer of the desk that remembered my hands. When the sheriff returned my new keys, they clicked against my palm like coins, like proof. I turned the deadbolt. It answered with that clean, throat-clearing sound I had been waiting to hear since the porch light burned my eyes. Outside, the neighbors' voices thinned and drifted. June brewed peppermint and set a mug by my elbow. Steam rose, steady and ordinary. I breathed it in. The house smelled like its own name again. People will say a lot of things about love. I will say this: it is not what let the lock turn. I did that, and I will keep doing that as many times as it takes